All right, Mitchell. So, CEO of Rviita Energy Tea. Now, when you think of environmental sustainability, you guys are crushing it because it's the world's first energy tea in a low carbon footprint pouch. That's incredible, by the way. Now, Mitchell, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. There's so many ways I would love to start this conversation. You've got a really interesting background and a great story. So let's start there. What do we need to know about you and your journey that would explain how you got your start at Revita?
Thanks, Christoph. Well, it's truly an honor to be here. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. And yeah, I have a crazy story because I'm an engineer by trade. There's really no business for me being in the consumer goods business, but I've done this complete 180 with my career. So I guess I'll start with what is Revita? So it's a healthy energy drink. Put simply, I came up with the idea because when I was 20 years old, my best friend, also 20 years old at the time, I was out with him one evening and he loved energy drinks probably too much. Well, near the end of our evening, ends up clutching the left side of his chest, just about passes out. I end up rushing him to the hospital. And I'll never forget the doctor walks in and says, "Hey, your friend, we think he had a heart attack that was contributed or attributed to energy drinks." So happy ending to the story. He's okay now. He's made a full recovery. But this was the light bulb moment, right? What is in these energy drinks? And is there a healthy alternative? I couldn't find one, so I set out to create it. And that's really the inception story of how Revita came to be.
Beautiful. Well, a pity how it had to start, with the heart attack, but good that at least he's all good now. At 20 years old, though, to have a heart attack, that must have been a real shock for him, right?
It was a shock. Yeah, like you never think, right? A 20-year-old, but yeah, he had all the symptoms of a heart attack. I'd heard of, like learned about it in school, so I rushed him to the hospital. They hooked him up to the EKG machine and everything, and sure enough, yeah. So it's pretty crazy, what's in these energy drinks, and I was just bewildered why there was no healthy options on the market in Canada, at least, anyways.
And I love it. You found the solution basically. So let's go at that point then. You realize that there are no better alternatives. Your friend had a heart attack because of the products that you can actually buy. At that point, you probably have a million questions, a million ways you can actually go about starting your journey there. How did you get the ball rolling there? How did you also know where your attention was actually most needed at the very beginning?
Yeah, great question, Christoph. So yeah, fast forward a few years from that night with my friend. Here I am. I'm working in oil and gas in Canada. I'm a petroleum engineer by trade. I just gotten out of school, and I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? But I'd never taken action on that dream. So I finally kind of hit this crossroads in my life where I felt like I needed to make the decision to start working on a business, right? Stop making excuses. Thought back to my friend there and what happened to him. And so my business literally started with a Google search. How do you start a beverage company? Started messing around with ingredients in my kitchen, realized pretty quickly I had no idea what I was doing. So through those Google searches, I found what's called a food scientist. Didn't even know this career existed, but they're scientists that are basically devoted to just helping entrepreneurs develop new food products for the market. So found a food scientist that was willing to work with us, used my student line of credit that I still had to fund the retainer for this food scientist, and just got to work working on the formula. So that was really kind of how I got the ball rolling. I was still working a full-time job at the time. It took about 2 years of R&D before we got to market, and that's how we came up with the formula that we have today.
Wow, I love how simple actually the start was there. Just Google it. How do you start? And it just you do one thing and the next step and the next step and the next step. You mentioned you always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Why is that? What was it about being an entrepreneur that you always just wanted to be like one?
Yeah, great question. I think it's probably a few things. One, I watched my dad grow up really unhappy in his original career. Yeah, so my dad worked also in oil and gas, also as an engineer, and he got to this point in his mid 30s where I could tell, as a kid, right? He was coming home from work and he didn't like this atmosphere, didn't love his boss, didn't love the politics. And then I watched him start his company in his early 40s and just saw the transformation in him personally. So I think seeing that as a kid, it got me really excited about entrepreneurship. And also, I was kind of one of those kids that I didn't like following directions. I hate being told what to do. So, I can work for someone else, I can do it, but I hate it. So, deep down, I think I just knew that I was meant to be work for myself, have control over my own destiny. That was something that was really appealing to me. So I think the combination of that and seeing what my father had accomplished with his entrepreneurial endeavors was really what inspired me to become an entrepreneur.
That's a great story. Well, first of all, welcome to the club of not liking when you have to take direction from people. Same.
Yeah, you and I
I hate
both.
it. Yeah, exactly. It's always better when you can be in control. And I'm also happy to hear about your dad that he changed his career at 40 years old. Because some people might say it's too late. Some people just stay in their career till the end of their actual professional career. Your dad actually transitioned there, so I'm really glad that he did, and doing so motivated you to go onto your journey. So that's really an interesting story. Is he still helping you out maybe now with some of the things here, some of the learnings he even got from his journey?
Yeah, for sure. So my dad's actually got a really crazy story. So when he was in his late 30s, he's not a smoker and he ended up getting a very rare form of lung cancer. So super traumatic, had to have, a part of his lung removed, really invasive surgery. And yeah, about 40 years old, he goes to get life insurance because now he's terrified for his life, right? And how he's going to provide for his family. He can't get it, right? He gets turned down by life insurance. So that was his like wake up call moment is I want to start my own business. I can't get life insurance, so at least I can create a business that has some value for my family if something happens to me. So that's my dad's story. So he's in his early 40s, starts an engineering company. He's grown it from nothing to now I think they're close to 160 people,
Wow.
about 12 or 13 years later. And to answer your question, absolutely. Yeah, my dad's been, he's one of the investors in our company. He's been really my mentor and my hero. He's really helped me help guide the company in the right direction. If, I have a question about hiring or firing, or I'm going through a really hard time, he's been through a lot of that on his journey. So I'm really blessed to have both my father and my mother with their entrepreneurial experience.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. Also, I'm thinking now, if you said your father is a bit like a mentor to you, you know that whatever he's going to say about the business, good or bad, he just has the best interest at heart. There's no intentions behind it. It really is. He wants to see his son's business just grow as much as possible. So you're really well surrounded there. So if now we go at the beginning of the brand, I saw that you mentioned that you guys didn't start the conventional way. You actually started at gyms, right? Where you actually first placed your products. Can you tell us about the strategy a little bit there?
Yeah, you bet. Great question. So yeah, we did that 2 years of food science, right? And messing around with things in my kitchen. Finally get the samples, finally launch the product when we get it tasting good and the packaging all comes together. And at the time, and I mean, still now, I love fitness, right? Love going to the gym. The gym was my passion. So I think the combination of that and just developing a product that was going to really meet the needs of athletes, right? Clean ingredients, all natural, caffeine from tea. It checked a lot of boxes for athletes. So instead of launching into a conventional grocery store, convenience store or something, I didn't know any better. So I just started going to some of our local gyms, meeting the owners, and we started selling into little fridges out of gyms. So that's how we got our start as a brand. And it was amazing how much traction and community we were able to build just by getting out into the local community and handing samples out at gyms.
I love that because always when speaking of entrepreneurs, we always think you need to think outside the box. You don't need to do like everyone else, and that's exactly what you guys did. It wasn't the conventional retailers, or maybe even sometimes, or some people do, it's the farmers market. You guys really just did your passion, which was working out. By the way, how do you find the time in your incredibly busy days to still, first of all, have the energy and also the time to get that workout in? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear what you do too, Christoph. But for me, I went through a period of time in my early business where I've been really passionate about, fitness most of my life. And when I started my business, I sacrificed fitness for more hours in the business. And that was a mistake. Gained a bunch of weight, but more than my physical health, I really seen it in my mental health. I wasn't handling stress very well. I was blowing up in situations where normally I would stay calm. So I kind of had an epiphany that I have to find a way to fit that workout in. And for me, it's first thing in the morning. If I don't do it first thing, like my day just gets away from me. I'm sure you can relate to that too, right? It's
Yeah.
just drinking from a fire hose with all the emails and LinkedIn messages and things going on. You know, employee that has an issue or something, customers mad about something. Like if you try to go in the gym in the middle of the day, I find it's just not feasible. So for me, it's waking up as early as I have to. Sometimes that's as early as 3:30 in the morning. Get
Oof.
into the gym, get the job done before I get into the office. So it's not always that early, but I try to never make an excuse. If I got to be at the production line at 6 a.m. to get it going, then I'm getting up at 3:30 and I'm getting into the gym at 4. So it's just making that a non-negotiable in your life.
Okay, that's also probably why you mentioned on LinkedIn that you need to be, or the modern day entrepreneur needs to be a business athlete, right? To do both, because it's not just about looking good, but it's really about also mentally having the toughness, for example, to
Exactly.
withstand not only the gym, but then also what happens throughout the day, and also to just feel like maybe you're improving in every aspect of life, not just business, but everywhere.
You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it. And one of the big paradigm shifts, I guess you could say, that I had is I'm not working out anymore for what I get. It's what I get rid of, right? When I get in the gym in the morning, I'm getting rid of the negative energy. I'm getting rid of that stress. I'm getting rid of all of those thoughts and whatnot that hold me back. I'm purging all of that first thing in the morning in my workout. And so when I change my mindset shift from I have to go to the gym because I have to be healthy to I'm going to the gym because I got to get rid of all of this negativity in my life that's building up, and that's my way to just feel better for the day. As soon as I shifted my mindset to that, it's been so much easier to just get up, get in the gym, and get it done because I know what a positive impact it has on my day and on my life.
I like that paradigm shift, yeah, because you know that if you're not going to go to the gym, then you're going to still have all of that negative energy with you, and maybe it's going to burst out during the day, and that's really not, I think, what you want. Negativity isn't something you want to carry with you, right? So that's one thing really interesting. I also noticed what you do is you talk a lot about relationships, which does make sense because ultimately you're in the people's business. But whether it's with retailers or with clients or your team, relationship is incredibly important. But some brands decide whether it's intentionally or sometimes unintentionally, um, they don't put such a heavy emphasis on relationships.
Yeah,
Why did you guys then focus so much on it, and how did you know that it was going to be so important for your success?
for sure. Well, I think where a lot of it came from is, two things. One, I really do genuinely care about people. And so do my co-founders. Like we created this business to help people, right? Saw my friend have that heart attack. We genuinely want to help people. So that's a big part of it. But two, I'm an engineer by trade, didn't know a lot about business. And so kind of how I educated myself early on in business was Andy Frisella. Not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah,
Has an
100%.
amazing podcast. Yeah. Listen to that whole MFCEO podcast. And he always talked about best way to grow a business is take one customer and do such a good job for them that they're obligated to tell a friend. They feel obligated to tell somebody about it. And I thought that was just a groundbreaking idea for me. And so we started doing that early on. Like our first couple of online customers, I would drive to their house, I'd bring them extra samples, I'd knock on the door, deliver it by hand, thank them for the order, write a handwritten thank you note. And it worked. They would tell all their friends, they'd make a social media post, and we get our next customer. And we
Nice.
would just recreate that process over and over and over again. So, on top of it just being the right thing to do and we enjoy it, it's also a great business strategy because it creates so much word of mouth that it's kind of a competitive advantage when you're thinking about the Red Bull and Monsters of the world that we're somewhat competing against, right? How do you compete against a company with $1 billion marketing budget? Well, their founder isn't driving to a customer's house and dropping off their online order, right? So if you can find little unique ways to really make an impact on your customers, I find that's an incredibly powerful marketing tool as well as just doing the right thing.
Yeah, I love that as a strategy because you mentioned Andy Frisella real quick. I love his podcast as well. And what you
Yes.
mentioned about, one customer, I think he does the same with his podcast where he doesn't run any ads on it. It's just
Yeah.
he delivers such good value that you want to talk about it with a friend. And it's the same then with an incredible product, incredible brand like yourself. If you give such an incredible customer experience to every single customer, naturally over time it's going to compound and it's going to be such an advantage that no one can take away from you because it took so long to build. It's such a strong foundation then that's rooted inside of your brand. So I love that as a strategy you guys have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you do a great job at it too. I don't answer very many LinkedIn messages in full transparency, but you sent me a personalized video that I was really touched by. I thought that was such a beautiful touch. I've never seen that before. So, in the sea of LinkedIn DMs that I get, man, you were one of the ones that I responded to. So you're doing an excellent job at it yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I feel sorry for you guys how many messages, emails you must get every single day and how much time that must take take out of your day to really filter through all of that. But then speaking of LinkedIn, I love how transparent you are on your LinkedIn page where you really document your journey. A lot of people only show the beautiful side, only show the
Yeah.
in reality, there are probably a lot more difficult times than there are just easy times when everything's going right? So, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges you faced, especially starting the brand? Because I'm sure you're walking into a sea of unknown opportunities, unknown events that are going to happen. How did that go for you?
Yeah. You know what, Christoph? It's been probably in the magnitude of 100 times harder than I ever imagined it was going to be. And part of the reason I'm so transparent on LinkedIn is it's kind of the Andy Frisella effect. He's the first entrepreneur that's ultra successful that I ever really heard talk about a lot of the challenges he faced and how hard it is, right?
Yeah.
You go on LinkedIn or you go on Instagram and you see a 21-year-old driving around in his rented Ferrari, making ads about buy my course for $999 and you're going to be a millionaire in 2 months. And I used to watch those ads and it would make me feel terrible about myself. Like, what am I doing wrong? Right. But
Yeah.
that's not the reality of entrepreneurship. True entrepreneurship is really difficult. I mean, right from the get go, right? I thought it was going to take 3, 4 months to launch our product with this food scientist, cost like, maybe $20,000, cost it into the six figures to get the brand started, took over 2 years. We had to put in an application with Health Canada just to get an approval to sell our product. I can't tell you how many iterations we went through of that application and how many back and forth conversations we had to have with Health Canada. It was incredibly arduous just to get started, right? And then you get into the market. I've had manufacturing challenges like more than I ever imagined I would ever have. We've ran out of money, multiple times, or I've had to make payroll personally. My father, who we talked about before, was helping us build our own manufacturing line. So we had to build our own production line. We were using a third party. They couldn't keep up with demand, so we were forced to build our own manufacturing line. When he's helping me out, he ends up breaking his leg and both his arms on a pallet he was tripped over back on the line. Like, he's running around in an electric wheelchair helping me out. I mean, it's just been adversity after adversity after adversity. And I think it's really important to educate that next generation of entrepreneurs that this isn't supposed to be easy, right? It's not just butterflies and rainbows and you're going to be driving a Lamborghini in 6 months, right? This, building a real brand and a real company takes years. It takes blood, sweat, tears, heart, perseverance, and dedication. I think that message is really lost by a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and I think it's kind of irresponsible by a lot of them to not showcase what they went through to get there, because there's a lot of struggling people in business right now that are going to inevitably end up quitting. But if someone else can share their struggles and how they persevered through it, that might be enough to get them through.
Yeah, your message there is just perfect. I agree. Everyone is just, especially like you said, maybe sometimes the younger people, they're a little bit more naive. So, I watched the same videos. You see the guy, he just got out of school and he's already driving a Lambo and he's making 100,000 a day, and you just feel terrible about yourself. But
Yes.
in reality, it's so incredibly difficult. But I think that's why also especially on your LinkedIn, it's working so well. You're getting great traction. Everyone's interacting with you because they can see how honest you are, and people are naturally, I think, gravitated towards the truth because we've kind of all seen it now. The BS stories of I started 2 months ago and now I'm a millionaire and I'm moving to Dubai. All these stories you,
Right?
you
Yeah.
get it right, and it's frustrating. So that's why it's so refreshing to see someone just be honest about their journey, the ups and also the downs, because there are so many downs. it's a breath of fresh air, right? So throughout then all of these challenges, some people even sometimes I heard they make a comparison. It's like a video game where there's always the
Yes.
next level. There's always a bigger boss. You've never finished a game, and it's always every day is a challenge, right? So that's why it's better to focus on the journey instead of the destination. So how do you make yourself enjoy the actual journey and not just focus on the end result?
Yeah, that's $1 million question, isn't it? And that's something, I'm really working on is trying to be a little bit more present in the moment. I was actually I submitted, Annie Frisella does that Q&A, and I submitted a question. I said, if you could go back to your original retail store that he was sleeping on that piss stained mattress in the back, like what advice would you give yourself? Because like that's what I told him. I'm in that phase of my business. Like it's really hard right now. And his answer on the show was I would enjoy it more. I would try to be in the moment more, right? I would try and because those times, as hard as they are, they're fun. And so that's something that I'm been very guilty of, right? There's been a lot of days where I'm like, man, oh man, like why am I doing this? Like, I had a great job before I got into this. I was making way more money in my previous career, but this is way more fulfilling. And so now I'm trying to really stop and smell the roses a little bit. As hard as this is, we're not profitable yet. It's a grind. I'm in the office 7 days a week, really giving her. But you know what? I get to hang out with my co-founders every single day. I love my staff. I love my team. As hard as it is, it's a lot of fun. So I think, you know, something that I'm really working on right now is staying in the moment and not I really want that end result really bad, right? I want to grow this into a massive successful company, but I think it's also really important to just stop and really enjoy what you're working on right now. Because I guarantee, 20, 30 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, man, those were some fun times. As hard as they were, I wish I could go back and experience that again. So I think that, having that perspective is really important as a young entrepreneur.
I agree. I think that's a really good perspective because, like you mentioned, going whenever because I'm sure I'm 100% convinced that it's going to work. You're on such a great track. The product, everything is just perfect. It's just a matter of when, not if. And then in 10, 15, 20 years, you look back, you're really going to think, wow, these were really the glory days. This is really when we grinded so hard, but that's really what built this business. So I agree. Yeah, if you can actually enjoy it, even though it's difficult, it's part of the ride, isn't it? So it just makes it more fun. You mentioned then that maybe yeah, again, there's so many challenges. What is then your why? What's Mitchell's why when everything is going wrong? When you see your dad who broke his foot, you said?
Yeah, he broke his foot and both his arms. So he was in a wheelchair with a broken foot and
Sorry to
both
hear
broken arms. Looked like Professor X ripping around in his. So again, happy ending of the story. He's made a full recovery. His business is growing and really flourishing right now. So
that's good.
that's you can imagine, right? Me walking to the back warehouse and he'd fallen because he'd already was in one of those little scooters because his foot was broken. You know, breaks both of his arms. Like those are hard days, man. There's it's tough to even explain what that feeling is like when you go through stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so what's my why? It's really deep rooted in a couple of things. It's this really desire to want to make the world a better place, even in some small way. So when I'm having really bad days, we have a folder in our shared drive in the office here that I go into, and it's called "When You're Having a Bad Day," and it's some of the
Yeah.
customer messages we've received. So we have messages from cancer patients that were in the hospital that said that our product was the only thing that made them feel better when they were going through treatment. We have people that were addicted to energy drinks that really needed a healthy alternative, and they're like, "Wow, this has really helped me." Alcoholics, right, that needed some other type of beverage to help keep them distracted. That our product helped them, and so when I'm having a really bad day and everything's going wrong, because we've had a lot of those recently, I really try to focus on those stories, right? The impact that you're having, even if it's just one person, if you've made their lives better, right? I look at my sister and co-founder Carly. She was a nurse, but she didn't love her job, right? Being a nurse, especially during COVID, that's it was a brutal job for her. She wasn't finding a lot of fulfillment there, and now she is such a badass in business. She's killing it. So I go to her office and see her smiling, and I'm like, you know what? That's my why. my why is to serve the people that I care around me and try to make this world a better place in some way. So I think, on days where it's really dark and I want to quit, those are the types of things that I try to focus on.
That's powerful, yeah, definitely. I think very, very difficult to not get motivated when you can read these stories or when you can see your family really, they're so much happier. And partly that's because of you. So you're saying, okay, you know what, we're doing some good here. Let's just keep going and let's just do more of this. So that's really powerful. I like that answer. If
Thank you.
if we change it up a little bit now, dragons then, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How did that go? Because I'm a huge fan of the show. I love it. Can you walk us through a little bit how it goes? So who reaches out to who first? How does it happen? How did you feel? Were you nervous? I mean, just walk us through the experience if possible.
Yeah, you betcha. So how it worked is I believe it was someone from the show or someone affiliated with the show had reached out to us. I think it was via Instagram or email to my sister Carly, and co-founder who manages all of our incoming messages and social media. Said, hey, there's additions in Calgary, the city where we're from. The producers are coming. And so how that worked is it's basically like the real show, but it's not the dragons, it's the producers of the show. So you go in, you give your pitch, they ask questions. It's basically a simulation of the show. And then they ask you all the questions. It went really well. We got really great feedback from them. And now we're just waiting to hear whether we're actually going to end up on the show with the Dragons or not. So we're supposed to hear by the end of next week. So I'll keep you posted if we get accepted.
Please do.
And it's a super, super exciting opportunity. We're in the midst of raising some capital anyway, so the timing couldn't be better. I know Dragon's Den is huge in the UK and huge in Europe. It's definitely really big in Canada too. So it'd be a true honor to make it on the show.
Definitely. I think it will probably also add so much social proof as well to the business. It's going to add so much more trust. Were you nervous when you were going to do your pitch in front of the guys?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we did have going for us is we donate a lot of time to local universities here where we come in and we, in front of a lecture hall, it could be 100 plus people. We're doing, virtually a similar thing to the Dragon's Den, and we do that, tens, if not hundreds of times, right? So we have a lot of reps under we've done this a ton of times, so there's a lot of muscle memory there. But yeah, absolutely, the three of us were really nervous, but we went in there, we just rehearsed it so many times, it went really well. I have no regrets. We left everything out there, and I'm really hopeful that we'll end up on the show.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, if you can keep me posted, because I'd be so happy for you guys if you are accepted there, and
Thank you.
love to see you guys then, whether it's on YouTube or on TV, to see how the actual audition went and to know who invested. Now,
Definitely.
maybe you already answered this question a little bit, and I have an idea of the answer already, but what would you say was your strategy that actually allowed you guys to grow the most?
Yeah, I think like we'd already talked about, right? It was that really good customer service that allowed us to grow. But from a product perspective, I'd always walk down the energy drink aisle, right? And I would assume it's very similar in Europe. It's mostly cans, right?
Yeah,
Bright colored cans, maybe the odd bottle, but it's this really bright, in your face, extreme branding. And so I would walk down at my lunch, for instance, when I worked as an engineer in my suit, and I'm like, none of these brands really resonate with me, right? And nothing really stands out. So when we went with this flexible pouch, which is a completely different packaging type, we actually have a patent pending on it, totally unique. That I think is one of the things that's really spurred our growth because when people see our product in a store, it stands out. It's white in a sea of dark colored cans, so it stands out. It gets people to pick it up and it gets people to try it. And I think that's what's really helped a lot of our initial growth is instead of having to run ads and a whole bunch of promotions and stuff, we've had a lot of customers buying it in store simply just because it looks so different.
that's beautiful. That is really good, especially in today's day and age when the attention is such an important currency. It's the most important one because everyone's
Yes,
fighting for it. You guys can cut through all the noise just thanks to your packaging. So that's almost a superpower that you guys have. But I find it really, really clever because, like you mentioned here as well, with the energy drinks, I also like just to walk past it. It's a lot of cans and it's a lot of sometimes dark colors or flashy colors. So if you have your product there, it makes you look twice like, did they place this at the wrong area because it's not like everyone else? You look, and then it's like, okay, actually, I want to try this because it sounds a lot healthier than what everyone else is offering, you know? So that's super, super clever and very strategic. So you have gained so much experience since you started. So for anyone that is thinking of starting their CPG brand, what
Yes.
advice would you give them?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, the biggest thing would be just start, right?
Google
I'd had
search.
this idea since I was 20 years old and I sat on it for a really long time because I was so overwhelmed and afraid to just get going. I made every excuse in the book, right? How do you start a beverage company? Like, I didn't even know the first step. Well, the first step is go on Google right now and Google, how do I start X company, right? That's day one. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice is just start today, right? Start with the research process, start doing one thing a day because you'll amaze yourself how that will compound over time. And then the second thing, as a CPG company, something really technical is make sure you understand your gross margins. I think that's the number one mistake that I see a lot of CPG companies make. It's a very, very expensive industry. You have to have a very good gross margin to survive because there's so many advertising dollars, there's so much overhead, staff, production, promotions in stores. If you don't have enough gross margin built into your product, you're just not going to survive in this industry. So I think those two things, start today and make sure you really pay attention to your cost of goods and your gross margins.
Those are two very, very good pieces of advice. Yeah, definitely. Just make sure that all of the most important numbers are good from the start, right? So you're not shooting yourself in the foot. I love that. Really.
Exactly. Yeah.
If let's because I got two more questions then. Let's try and
Yeah.
end on a really positive note. If you think back now throughout your journey with this brand, what is one of the best moments for you? One of your proudest moments, like, wow, we actually did that.
Yeah, you know what? I was just laughing about it with my co-founders because we've had a lot of really amazing moments. Seeing our product get into the Walmart shelves, that
Yeah.
was really cool. Seeing it get into Safeway, that was really cool. But I had a moment 2 weeks ago where, the closest thing I have to a hobby is I love playing poker. So I go to a local casino here. Been going there for the better part of a decade. And I'm there last Sunday, finally get a Sunday afternoon to myself and I walk into a little cafe there, and unbeknown to me, our product is in their fridge. So this casino that I'd been going to for a decade, didn't even know it was in there. One of our distributors, I still don't know how it got there. But I think, it just reminded me of those something so simple, right? Like just seeing it there that day, something that simple was just so profound to me, right? Like this place that I've always really enjoyed going to. It's a lot of fun. And now, wow, my product's in there and I didn't even know about it. So I think that's been one of the really cool moments. And then two, having my sister quit her nursing job and come on full time, I think, just seeing her thrive and what she has accomplished, everything from fitness to like, you know, her confidence, like how she just crushes sales, like watching her growth in the last 3 years is has made all of the hard times worth it for sure. So I think some of those small moments, seeing our products in cool places, and then just some of the staff we have here, like we just hired a guy that has 3 kids at home. He was kind of in between jobs, and just seeing him thrive here and love the brand, love coming to work every day. Those are the moments that make it all worth it.
Beautiful. Yeah, that I guess that also motivates you, right? You see you have such an impact, your sister, your family, people you hire, and also, like you said, you finally have a Sunday for yourself and a beautiful sign there. You have your own product. So yeah, that's
Right?
beautiful. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Last question then. What is your goal for this year? And then you mentioned you want to be a really, really big brand, but what's your long-term vision as well with your brand?
Yeah, so the big goal this year is to get to profitability. So we're really close. We're almost there. We're going to build our own production line. So we have massive overhead. So there's a bit of a burn there every month, but we're growing to the point where I think we're going to pull together a profitable year here, which will be awesome. And then long term, we want to be an international brand, right? The goal is to help 1 billion people with our product. So next year, we're going to be getting into the US is the plan. And then there might even be some opportunities in Europe. We're talking to some distributors overseas, one in Denmark right now, actually. So the plan, over the course of the next 10 years is how do we make this a big global brand and help people with our products internationally?
Beautiful. 100%. You guys will crush it this year. And I really look forward then, hopefully, in the near future, when I walk in the local supermarket in the energy part, I see you guys are there on the shelf. I would love that. So, Benjamin,
Thanks, Christoph. That
thank you.
means
Yeah, so thank you so much for your time. It was super, super interesting. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or about the brand as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Mitch Jacobson. That's Jacobson with an EN. Our social media is at Revitalize. That's spelled Rviitalize. Our website is revita.com. That's rviita.com.
Awesome. I'll put all of the links in the description, so everyone be sure to check it out. Mitchell, thank you so much.
Christoph, thank you so much. Truly an honor.
Love it.